All right. I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. Good morning. Good day, everyone. Calling this meeting to order at 10:30 a.m. on November 10th, 2025. I am D. Tyrell McGirt, and I serve as the Parks and Recreation Director here with the City of Asheville. I will also be working as your staff liaison with the Infrastructure Recovery Board. Few housekeeping items to note this morning. All board members and staff are participating virtually. To help our audience follow along, I will state each section of the agenda aloud. We are streaming live on our virtual engagement hub, which is accessible through the virtual engagement hub link on the front page of the city's website. We also have an option for the public to listen live by phone. For those of you out there joining us today, welcome. For today's meeting, we have an option for people to call in and comment live during the meeting. To call in and comment live, use the number 855-925-2801. Meeting code is 2535. Again, to call in and comment live, use the number 855-925-2801. Meeting code is 2535. Your phone will be muted and you will hear the meeting live. At this point, speakers will need to press *9 to enter the speaker's queue. There are a host of team members that I work with to help pull this off. So as I call your name, I ask each team member to come off mute, open up your camera and say hello. Christy Bass, Resource Management Division Manager with Asheville Parks and Recreation. She will also be serving as the staff liaison administrator for the Infrastructure Recovery Board.
Good morning.
Morning.
Brad Branham, City Attorney, Legal Department. I don't see Brad on. He may join us a little later. Walter Ear is the Interim Capital Projects Director or Capital Management Director. He also serves as the HMGP lead with the city. Walter.
Good morning.
Logan Smith, Communications Specialist with our Cape Department. Logan is in the background working. Also, I just want to acknowledge we have a couple of team members that are in other meetings that overlap with this meeting who will jump in a little later. Jamie Matthews, Assistant to the City Manager, also serving as Deputy Recovery Coordinator, will join us a little later. And Leslie Carrero, Assistant Director with Water Resources. I do just want to acknowledge we've had some technical difficulties, so therefore this meeting is all virtual. However, moving forward, the plan is to still meet for our future meetings in the first floor conference room here at City Hall, where there will also be a hybrid virtual option for any of our board members and guests who cannot join us in person. So appreciate you all's patience in working with us through the technical difficulties and being able to meet virtual for our second time together today. I have a few more meeting notes. Please note individual members and external parties are prohibited from using any AI note-taking applications, software, or devices during official boards and commission meetings. This includes personal AI voice recorders, transcription services, and any other AI tool designed to capture and summarize meeting content. Please be aware that the use of unauthorized AI note takers will result in removal from the meeting. So one note-taking item to be cautious of. Lastly, on our just housekeeping notes, I think it's important to just remind ourselves kind of why we're here, why we signed up to be a part of the Infrastructure Recovery Board. what is our mission statement and our purpose. So you will find that at the top of your agenda, but I'll read it now. The City of Asheville's Helene Recovery Boards are established to support City Council's vision for recovery that is rooted in resilience, rises in unity, repairs with care, and ready for tomorrow. The four boards represent City Council's priority areas of economy, housing, infrastructure, and environment and people. Through collaboration, expertise, and insight, each of the four boards will provide critical input on City Council policy recommendation while also extending the City of Asheville's communication through board members network. So City Council has been pretty intentional about making recovery a priority for the city as we move forward. And they've done a lot of work to dig deep into those impacted areas to come up with the 4 recovery groups that we're going to move forward with, which is part of the reason you all are here and are going to be working on the infrastructure portion of recovery for the next several months. So we just want to keep in mind the importance of knowing that recovery is a city priority and that infrastructure is part of that equation. And those things that we'll be spending a lot of time with over the next few months. We'll move on to the welcome and roll call portion of the agenda. Board members, I just want to welcome you all to our second time together as the Infrastructure Recovery Board. Again, congratulations on being appointed by council. For those guests who are joining us, I'm going to do a roll call. As I call your name, board members, please come off of mute and say hello and count yourself present. Kate and Kaya.
Hello.
Kenny Armstrong.
He just joined.
Kenny Armstrong.
Hey, I'm here. Sorry I'm late.
No problem. Joe Balkin.
Good morning.
Marty Benson.
Hello, friends.
AJ Hardy.
Good morning.
Shuvanda Harper.
Here.
Michael Holcomb.
Present and good morning.
Charlie Huguenard.
Good morning.
David George Nutter. Tim Orman.
Good morning, everybody.
And John Pierce.
Good morning, everybody.
Looks like we have everyone present except for Dave Nutter. So we'll move on to the next portion of the agenda, which is approval of minutes from the November 4th, 2025 meeting. Minutes were shared with you all in an email that went out on Friday. Those minutes can also be found on the Infrastructure Recovery Board website. Before we dive into it or answer any questions you have, is there a motion to approve the minutes and a second?
I move that the minutes from last week be approved.
A second.
Are there any questions, concerns about the minutes? All right, hearing none, you all, because this meeting is virtual, all of our official business that requires a vote has to be done by roll call. So I'm going to be calling your names out a lot today. We'll do a roll call vote to approve the minutes. Kate and Kaya.
Aye.
Kenny Armstrong.
Aye.
Joe Balkin.
Aye.
Marty Benson.
Aye.
AJ Hardy.
Aye.
Shuvanda Harper.
Aye.
Mike Holcomb.
Aye.
Charlie Huguenard.
Aye.
Dave Nutter. Tim Orman,
Aye.
and John Pierce. Did I miss that? Gotcha. Thanks, John. Minutes are approved. Thank you. We'll move on to unfinished business part of the agenda. We have a couple things to knock out today, namely adoption of the rules and procedures and election of the board chair and vice chair. Before we move forward, I do want to just pause and recognize that we do have Janice Ashley with us, who is our deputy city attorney with the legal department. Janice, you want to just say a quick hello?
Good morning, everyone. I'm standing in for Brad Branham, our city attorney for today, but he's usually going to represent you for legal. But good morning.
Thanks, Janice. Again, the board, we'll start with the approval or adoption of the rules and procedures. Again, another roll call vote, but before we get there, I need a motion to approve the rules and procedures.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Second.
I'm sorry, because I was talking. Who made the motion?
I did, but maybe somebody else did as well.
Got Tim with the motion and the second.
Second.
Thanks, Mike. We have Janice here with the legal department. Are there any questions or discussion around the rules and procedures? Anything that needs clarifying? Anything uncertain? Tim.
Yeah, I had one question. On Sustainability Advisory Committee, we had working groups. We had 3 different working groups that didn't constitute a quorum. Each one consisted of three members, and wondering if the infrastructure board, if we decided to have working groups, if that would be permissible. I did read the rules, and it said something about needing permission. So I wonder if you could say a little bit about how that might work if we decided that was necessary.
Yeah, I was hoping while you were talking, I could quickly find it, but as long as we don't have a quorum in any of the groups, members are allowed to get together, discuss anything recovery board related, but you cannot make any decisions in those meetings, and you cannot take any form of action. So.
And the other thing that I'd like to add is that, writing this template of rules of procedure by legal was trying to get everyone on the same page, because we've had 30 boards and commissions, and people were doing things slightly differently. And during COVID, working groups got a little bit beyond what an actual working group was. I'm not saying for your or your board, just some boards, they were actually acting like subcommittees. A subcommittee is also less than a quorum, but a subcommittee, as you'll see by these new rules of procedure, you need permission to form a subcommittee. So I don't know where you're going to go with that. This new board may decide to have official subcommittees. The difference is, a subcommittee has an official task that's assigned by the general body to say, you all go study this and then come back with feedback. Working groups are supposed to be more informal. In fact, they are not supposed to have some directive from the main body. So what became the problem was there were a number of boards that actually had memorialized working groups in their rules of procedure. And so we're trying to get away from that. And if there's a subcommittee needed that's determined, that would be your first thing. And then if it's determined, there are other things that, maybe a few of the members are like, we the larger body or the subcommittee doesn't have time for this, and you go off on your own. As long as you are less than a quorum, you can do that and bring those ideas back. But again, we're trying to keep it more formal and get away from the work groups unless it becomes really necessary. Does that answer your question, Tim?
Yeah, thank you, Janice. I think, as I understand it, working groups are more informal than a subcommittee. They're not official. So in SAC, we had, for example, a green infrastructure working group, a solid waste, and a climate working group. Those may have been more formal. And in this case, we want to stay away from that unless needed.
Unless you all decide we need a subcommittee for that, because that is something that we know, and that may evolve. This is a large committee. You may end up deciding and then getting permission to have subcommittees.
Thank you.
Good question, Tim. Mike.
Good morning, Janice. Nice to see you. Trying to make sure I understood what you just said. When Tim raised the question about working groups, it was not under the category of subcommittee. When you answered, it sounded, and I just want to clarify, it sounded as if you were saying working groups are okay, but it should be a subcommittee first. Did I misunderstand what you said?
What I was trying to explain is that working groups, which are supposed to be very informal and aren't considered meetings under the public meetings law, we're starting to evolve and become actually subcommittees. And what people got confused about was they were being directed, a working group was being directed to study something and come back, and they were not following public meetings law. They were not, having anybody show their meetings open to the public. And what I'm trying to say is, so those were starting to evolve, and not, they said they were working groups and title they were working groups, but they were really subcommittees. So working group is very informal. It's less than a quorum that might be getting together to discuss stuff, but it's not an actual public meeting. A subcommittee is given direction by this larger board to say, we need you to work on, like Tim's example, a green infrastructure. And then that will be formed as a subcommittee with an official task. And that subcommittee is subject to the open meetings law. So we'll have to figure out, how do we do a virtual, that takes staff time but it needs to be publicly available so that people can attend and know what a subcommittee is deliberating about. Does that make sense?
Yeah, just to put it simple for me, we can have subcommittees and or working groups. One is not dependent on the formation of the other. Is that correct?
Yes, but we're trying to get away from working groups unless it's considered necessary. I mean, for these larger bodies. And that they were starting to proliferate, so we can have that discussion. And I would say if it becomes determined we need people to be working on stuff, the first step will be an official subcommittee. Then if there are members that say there's still things that need to be discussed, but informally, then the working groups are permitted, but let's take it one step at a time.
Okay, I think I understand. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Mike. For those who are just kind of following along, if you have your rules and procedures with you, we're talking about Article 4, meeting structure, which kind of talks through what our regular meetings look like. If we were to have subcommittees, what that looks like. Just understand and know that there's a process. So when we think about subcommittees, that is a formal process that has to be followed. Like Janice said, it involves getting approval to have those types of committees. But Tim, according to your line of questioning, the informal meeting with 2 or 3 members for whatever reason is allowed. So Article 4 just kind of talks a little more about that if you're following along. Any more questions or comments about the rules and procedures? There is a motion on the floor. It's been seconded. We do a roll call vote for approval. Kate and Kaya.
Aye.
Kenny Armstrong.
Aye.
Joe Falcon.
Aye.
Marty Benson.
Aye.
AJ Hardy.
Aye.
Shubhanda Harper.
Aye.
Michael Holcomb.
Aye.
Charlie Huguenard,
Aye.
Dave Nutter, Tim Orman,
Aye.
and John Pierce.
Aye.
Rules and procedures are approved. We'll move on to the next agenda item, board officer elections. We'll start with the vice chair. When we were together last week, we had at least one member express an interest in the chair position. Hope you all have given us a little more thought as to who is also interested in the vice chair position. And what we would do is, if you're interested, ask that you come off mute, just share a little bit about yourself with the rest of the board and why you should be considered for the vice chair position. Not everyone speak at one time. I see a lot of smells. I don't see anybody coming off mute though. Come on.
I was waiting to see if anybody else was really eager. So yeah, I currently serve as the vice chair of the Public Art and Culture Commission. Otherwise, my plate is pretty full, but if there is no other interest, I'll volunteer.
Other interest for the vice chair position with the board. Well, Charlie, why don't you just share for those who don't know? I know this is only our second time together and we're still getting to know each other. Just share a little bit about yourself, qualifications, and again, your interest in being a part of the Infrastructure Recovery Board.
Sure. So I run a company called Impractical Instruments. We make interactive art. My background is mostly as a software engineer for video games, virtual reality, and interactive art. And then I also have a kind of side background in building public skate parks. And I actually worked for the Parks Department for a couple of years when I was in high school. And so, yeah, so I do a little bit of kind of advocacy work with Asheville Skate Foundation here, working on the Bounty Skate Park. So yeah, so my sort of technical and construction and project management background, it makes me kind of interested in this infrastructure rebuild.
Appreciate it, Charlie. We always like those folk who have their plates full with a lot of other things going on. I always say they make the best candidates. We've heard a little bit about Charlie, his background, his interest in serving as the vice chair. Is there a motion and a second to approve Charlie as the vice chair of the Infrastructure Recovery Board?
Make a motion that we appoint Charlie Huguenard as the vice chair of the Infrastructure Recovery Board.
Second.
Any other questions for Charlie, comments?
That's some great wallpaper.
Thanks. Try to keep it interesting.
I see that's the art side of you, Charlie. Yeah, love it. All right, another roll call vote for the approval of Charlie Huguenard as the vice chair of the Infrastructure Recovery Board. Kate Huguenard, Kate Akea.
But just because we have to do the roll call all the time, it's Ankaya is the last name.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah,
Kate Ankaya. Kenny Armstrong.
Aye.
Joe Falcon.
Yeah, and similar to Kate, it's Balkan and I.
Thanks, Joe. Marty
course, thank
Benson.
you.
AJ Hardy.
Aye.
Shubhanda Harper.
Aye.
Mike Holcomb.
Aye.
Charlie Huguenot.
Do I sit this one out?
Yeah. Dave Nutter. Janice just for clarification?
He can vote for himself.
Okay.
I know, but people don't like to do it, but might as well.
That was an aye from Charlie for himself. Dave Nutter, Tim Orman,
Aye.
and John Pierce.
Aye.
Awesome. We'll move on to board officer elections for our chair position. We had one person at the last meeting step up and express interest, and that was Tim Orman. Is there anyone interested in the chair position for the board? Tim, why don't you share a little bit again about yourself?
Sure. And thanks, everybody. Tim Ormond, I've been proud to call Asheville home for 18 years. I've been a licensed professional engineer for almost 30 years. I focus on water resources engineering, so floodplain management, stormwater, green infrastructure. In fact, the picture behind me is a parking lot at AB Tech that was just turned into a wetland education park, and I had the opportunity to be the engineer on that. I've been serving on the Sustainability Advisory Committee for, I think, 5 years, and as chair for 2 terms, elected by my peers and re-elected. I think I've also worked with the city on the Swannanoa flood risk management plan, so I have an understanding of the water systems, the damage, Helene, working in that environment. I've also worked on the capital improvement program for stormwater, so I have kind of an insider view, I think. I'd say my style is pretty egalitarian. I'm introverted, so I'll kind of like to listen to other people, but I think my engineering mind can help kind of keep things on track. And yeah, I'd be proud to serve. Oh, I also run a company called Blue Earth. That's a small local Asheville-based engineering and planning firm focused on water resources. But yeah, I'd be pleased to serve as your chair. I told people last time you could donate to my super PAC if necessary. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. Is there a motion and a second to approve Tim Orman as the chair of the Infrastructure Recovery Board?
I make a
I move.
motion to approve, Tim.
I second.
All right. Any other questions for Tim? Anything for discussion? We'll do another roll call vote for the approval of Tim Orman as the chair of the Infrastructure Recovery Board. And I try to get these names straight this time. Kate and Kaya.
Good job. Aye, thank you.
Kenny Armstrong.
Aye.
Joe Balkin.
Almost. Balkan.
Balkin.
Aye.
Marty Benson.
Aye.
AJ Hardy.
Aye.
Shuvanda Harper.
Aye.
Michael Holcomb.
Aye.
Charlie Huguenard.
Aye, and I'm impressed everybody's gotten my name right.
Dave Nutter. Tim Orman.
With humility, aye.
And John Pierce.
Aye.
Awesome. So we now have a chair of the board. Moving forward, Tim, what will happen is you, myself, Christy, will sit down prior to these meetings to work on getting the agenda together. We'll also make sure that we're keeping our eye on the PFI committee and making sure that anything that's coming down from them kind of informs the types of things that go on our agenda. So following this meeting, Christy and I will set up some time to sit down with you, get a calendar put together for when we can meet on a regular basis to help inform what's going to be on the agendas and help try to prepare you as much as possible. It would be Tim moving forward, everyone, who would be the person leading these meetings. You'll have the full support of myself, Christy, and any other team members of the city to get all the information needed and prepared for the infrastructure recovery meetings. But if it's okay with you, Mr. Chair, I will finish the meeting out with the presentation. We'll talk about some next steps and agenda items moving forward, take public comment, and then adjourn for the rest of today.
Sounds great. Yeah, please do. And just one question, when we do have these meetings, will the vice chair, Charlie, be included, or that's what we used to do with sustainability?
Yeah, sure. That is not a problem at all.
All right. Yeah, please go forward. Thank you.
All right. Next up on the agenda is an update and reports, and you all are going to spend a little time. Again, the main purpose of this meeting is to educate and inform, and we wanted to spend some time talking about kind of where things are today, infrastructure projects that are already moving forward with the city. I will note that the presentation is a little different from what was shared with you all on last Friday. You'll see some specific types of projects and how those projects are broken out into categories at the front end of the presentation. The meat of the presentation, however, stays the same. And I do have some staff members here to kind of help talk through some of the infrastructure projects that are currently happening. So Walter Ear, again, our interim capital management director and HMGP lead, is here. He'll talk about HMGP items when we get to that point in the presentation. We also have Leslie Carrero, who is our assistant director of water resources. She just jumped on. Leslie, if you can come off mute and just say hello.
Good morning.
We'll have Leslie jump on towards the end of the presentation and just kind of give us an update on what's been happening with water. Leslie, I just alarm you now. I didn't get yours. I think you were making some changes. So when we get to you, we may have you present your screen, share your screen, and bring up that slide as you talk through the water resources update.
Okay. Yeah, I sent it late. Sorry.
Oh yeah, no problem, no problem. So we'll get started. Next slide. Some key takeaways here. Again, the damages that have happened to infrastructure across the city happened across multiple departments, and they're kind of broken out into various categories. The main thing to keep in mind is the city's recovery process is heavily defined by the funding sources, with our goal of maximizing every dollar that we can get to rebuild and do it in a more sustainable, fantastic way. Lastly, progress has already been made with these infrastructure recovery across the city. So we'll talk a little bit about some of those projects that are moving forward and what that looks like. Next slide. So just an overview of the infrastructure recovery. We had things happen across the city. And there's several damaged assets that the city owns that were severely impacted by Tropical Storm Helene. They're kind of broken out into different categories, but just to make it as simple as possible, parks, greenways, and entertainment facilities is one grouping. Public works, which includes transportation, and is another grouping. Water resources, we've heard a lot about. That's our most expensive infrastructure damages, and it's going to take a lot to recover, is one category, and facilities, fleet, and contents is the next. So as we look through our recovery efforts and we try to understand everything and get it to a manageable projects that we can manage in-house, this is kind of how we're working through the process with these project groupings. Next slide. So parks, greenways, and entertainment facilities, as we work with our partners in the federal government, we understand that we have 32 damaged inventory items. That's just kind of how, working with FEMA, we identify the spaces or facilities that have been damaged. We hear a lot about the riverfront parks. We know those parks, we can see the damages in those parks, and we know that those are going to take a long time to recover. But we also had across the entire park system a number of other parks that were impacted. Some examples of those are Kenilworth Park, Magnolia Park, West Asheville Park. These are parks that had some damage. We're still trying to, we're working with our federal partners to recoup funds to get those repairs done. But just know there's a long list of these types of parks that are not written about, we don't hear a lot about, but there were damages in these spaces. Greenways, Glens Creek and Reed Creek are examples, but pretty much all of our greenways within our system were impacted somehow. And then entertainment facilities, Aston Tennis Center, Harrah's, Thomas Wolfe Auditorium. These are other facilities that were also impacted. These are facilities that fall up under our community and regional entertainment facilities. So it's separate from Parks and Rec, still a part of the city, but also facilities and spaces that were damaged that we're working with our federal partners to recoup funding for. Next slide. Public Works, we have identified 47 damage inventory items, and those items are across various structures. So the lighting system down in Biltmore Village is a part of this process. Bridges and roads that saw significant damage are part of Public Works recovery projects. Guardrails, roads and streets, sidewalks, stormwater, all of these categories roll up under the Public Works recovery projects that are moving forward and have been identified. So under Public Works, and again, this includes some of our transportation, streets and roads, we have identified 47 damage inventory items. Next slide. Water resources, pretty much all of our water resources were impacted somehow. So you name it, the dam, all of our water treatment plants, be it at the Brule, Mills River, North Fork, our water system pre-treatment facilities, all impacted. So 16 though total damage inventory items have been identified, and these are the projects that we are pushing forward, moving forward to get compensation back for. So next slide. And then we have some other categories here that include facilities, fleet, and contents. A total of 40 damage inventory items in this category that we're working through. Facilities include some of our centers saw some damage. We had other restroom sites in parks, so there's some crossover there. But those are considered facility items that we're working through. The radio tower, the nature center that falls up under the corrupt department. These are some examples of facilities that were impacted by the storm that are included in the damage inventory items. Fleet across multiple departments, mainly Parks and Rec, are also captured here. These are items that we're seeking to get reimbursement back from and working with our federal partners on the losses there. And then contents, anything that was in those facilities that were impacted by water or just wiped away. And we had some facilities that we no longer have today, and contents within them that we're seeking reimbursement back from. So the fire station 2, the park maintenance facility that was located on Thompson Street, Recreation Park, the pump house there, anything that was located in those facilities that were impacted, contents is a part of those damage inventory items that we're seeking reimbursement back from. Next slide. So again, the overall recovery process is defined heavily by our funding methods, and that's how we think about it internally as we're going through the recovery process. What are the funding methods available to us to rebuild back what was lost? So namely for us, that is FEMA PA, FEMA Public Assistance Program. We'll dive a little deeper into each of those. FEMA HMGP, or Hazard Mitigation Grant Program, And through the Housing and Urban Development Department, Community Development Block Grant Disaster Recovery, or CDBG-DR funding. This is the funding that is available to us, and this is how we are positioning and prioritizing our work. We'll take a little deeper dive here in a minute around how we plan to allocate and use that funding moving forward. Next slide. The FEMA PA process, when you think about FEMA PA, think this is base level. So you think about, I mentioned some of those parks like Kenilworth and Magnolia Park early. We know we had damage there. We're not seeking to do anything big and grand with those parks. We're just trying to repair any of the fence that was damaged in those parks, bring it back. We're not doing anything new and fancy with those areas. FEMA PA is the funding method used to bring back those facilities. So it's the base infrastructure repair and replacement. We're not, again, looking to do anything special. We're just trying to get it back to what we had before the storm. Also included in FEMA PA is mitigation funds. So it is a cap funding option to rebuild back anything that was damaged in the flood zone or damaged during Helene that may be able to benefit from some additional dollars for mitigation efforts. So through FEMA PA, there is some additional funding that projects can qualify for a cap level, and there's a formula to get there for additional mitigation dollars within the PA program. And again, we're focused with PA on just infrastructure that was damaged from the storm, nothing else. If it was broke before the storm, that doesn't qualify for FEMA PA. We're just talking about infrastructure damage from Tropical Storm Helene. Next slide. Public assistance or a PA program by numbers. So I just spelled out in each of those categories how many damaged inventory items we have. So across the board, that totals 135 across all of those categories. Now, that's a lot. That's a lot. And some of these projects or damaged inventory items include things like parks. So you can imagine, take care of your park. We just looking at that picture, there's several items in that park that are identified. So each damaged inventory may have several layers to it, like a street or a road. So just know that we're talking about a large mass of damaged items, assets in our system. The way we go about trying to wrap our arms around all of it is grouping those damaged inventory items into these FEMA projects, smaller FEMA projects. And right now we've identified 54 total FEMA projects, which these 135 damaged items kind of fall into. This is a more manageable way to manage the projects and us to move forward with the resources we currently have in our recovery process. Reimbursement for PA category, there are different categories FEMA has set up. We have been reimbursed for some of these already. So we think about debris removal and emergency protective measures. We're looking at about 4.8 million. And then under category Z, management costs, roughly 5%, we're looking at 300K. So again, these are processes and infrastructure projects that we're already moving forward with our federal partners.
Hey, Dee, one question if I could ask.
Yes, sir.
In a previous iteration of the presentation, the category A debris removal was 6.4 million, and now it's 4.8. And I guess category B was 3.4. So it was higher numbers. Are y'all in trying to maximize reimbursements, shifting projects between one category and another, or you know, it leads me to a question. Are these just the projects that we have right now, but the funding is a different level? I'm trying to just understand a little bit about how this works between the allocation from the federal government of each one of these categories and then the projects that we're identifying.
So it's a consistent ebb and flow. So these things are changing sometimes daily, feels like. Jamie, I think you took a look at this and maybe made some updates here. Was there anything that you saw when making the updates with specifically debris removal and emergency protective measures?
Yeah, like you said, Dee, it's an ever-changing flow of funding. And the slide I think that was in here was a bit outdated from a previous presentation. So these are the most current numbers that we have right now. It's complicated process and kind of hard to explain how we spend the money and get reimbursed working through that process. So there is more funding that we have requested, and we have in the process a lot more funding, but this is just where we are right now with the actual reimbursements that we have received.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thanks, John. Next slide. So this graph just kind of gives you, sorry, go ahead, Joe.
Thanks, Steve. Just real quick question. You mentioned that the PA funds would be really dedicated to repairing assets to what they were before the flood. Can neighborhood organizations or other entities raise funds to supplement the PA funds to improve community assets above and beyond just those repaired levels?
Sure, it would be similar to, I'm thinking about, because I work in Parks and Rec, a playground. The city may allocate so many million to make an improvement in the playground, and then the community comes behind the city and say, hey, we'd like to see this other element added to this playground project, and we're willing to fundraise to do that. To date, I'm not aware of any projects where we've had that type of interest, but the city would certainly be open to considering what that may look like.
Is there a preference or a recommendation on the timing of those conversations? Would it be better for those community organizations to wait until after the city does the repairs, or should it be done in parallel?
I think it would depend on the project, but keep in mind, as we move forward with these infrastructure projects for the city, there's going to be some type of public engagement where we can take a look at if we have any type of requests come through, like what you're recommending, for the city to think through that process and try to coordinate efforts if it makes sense to do so. So I think as we go through the public engagement piece, that would give citizens an opportunity, and even with this board, those projects that are moving forward, if they're enhanced things that isn't being covered either from PA, HMGP, or CDBG-DR funding, over and above that funding, I think it's worth having those conversations at that time.
Thank you.
Yeah. So the FEMA PA process is here. I like to say, or we like to say all the time, and remind constituents that this is a marathon. We're working with federal funds, so these processes are not going to go fast. We're over a year out now, and we see still that some of the sites that and projects that we're working on are just getting to a certain phase in this PA process. So it's not going to go fast. Federal government is not just going to willy-nilly give out money. There's a process involved with every step and with every funding opportunity, which is why it's important that we dot all our I's and cross T's. I didn't mention it already. We're not recovery experts here with the city. I'm a Parks and Rec professional. Therefore, it's important that we have partners that we contract with to help guide this process forward. So the city is currently contracted with Haggerty consulting firm. They deal specifically with recovery, and that is the group of professionals that we're working with to kind of guide this process as our recovery process for the city, and that includes all aspects of it. As it relates to PA, you can kind of see there are 5 phases here. Out of all of those projects that we have identified, you can see that some projects are at different phases. Each phase is broken down into giving you a better understanding of what's done in that phase to get to the end project of obligating and awarding those funds. That's ultimately where we want to be. You can see with our temporary water pretreatment facilities, we've already got some movement there. We get into phase 6, and that is just one of those projects that is listed as a high priority for the city. With some of our other projects, that is a process that we're still moving through and working with FEMA through that entire process. So it is at a snail's pace. We're still working. FEMA is still boots on the ground here, and we're trying to get these projects over the finish line. Next slide. Got Walter Ear with us, who is serving as our HMGP lead with the city. He's also our interim capital management director. He's going to talk a little bit about the HMGP process and update us on where we stand with the application process for those projects. Walter.
Thanks, Dean. Hey, folks. Again, Walter Ear, interim director, capital management. So FEMA funds for this program, the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program, there are $1.4 billion available, and it is being managed by the North Carolina Emergency Management Department. It is a competitive process with priority given to affected counties. Most folks may know this program better by the private property acquisition and assistance program. So folks can, with private property affected by the storm, can apply to either get their properties bought out, or they can do mitigation measures like elevating their house or their building, or other stabilizing activities. The public infrastructure side is largely what staff is working on with our Haggerty consultants. And those public infrastructure projects must mitigate a natural hazard or other type of natural hazard disaster. And those construction activities related with those projects must prove cost effectiveness. So there's a benefit cost analysis that's done that has to be at least 1, and we shoot for much higher than 1, because during construction we still have to maintain above a 1 BCA. 9 infrastructure project applications were authorized by council in the July 26th meeting, and then we do hope and expect that NCEM will open up additional rounds of applications to municipalities to apply for additional projects. Move on to the next slide. Those 9 next slide, please. Those 9 projects are now reduced to 8. One of them we just couldn't submit and get ready in time. The timeline for applications is very narrow, at least for this first round. We've got 8 applications in October. The total dollar value of all projects is $415 million in potential mitigation for our community. We sent those in October, very beginning of October. We're waiting for feedback this month. And once we get that feedback, we'll understand which projects are going to be supported by NCEM, and then whatever feedback that needs to be applied in those applications before they go to FEMA. So we'll submit in December to NCEM. NCEM then submits to FEMA, and then we wait. The process for approval is, we've heard, about 2 years for this type of project. So it must be both important enough to be a mitigation activity that is provides a benefit that is good enough to beat that 1 BCA, but also not so important. It doesn't have to be in the disaster area. I think that's, maybe folks may not understand that. It doesn't have to be in the disaster area to be eligible. But not so important that we need the money like right away, because we're not going to get it right away. So I'll just run through a couple of these. Flood warning systems. We did have flood stream gauges that were taken out during the storm. Those will be, that's part of a PA claim that we're going to apply for. And then this flood warning system provides, as you would expect, alerting systems, as well as additional flood and stream gauges to provide a better, more consolidated warning system. We are going to work with the county on implementation of that. Land use plan and code updates is also allowed an eligible activity that you may hear at PEDE come up, that is being applied for with a CDBG DR grant to update our code. Open space planning is where the property owners do apply for acquisition. We're going to get a handful of properties that have some very strict constraints on what is allowed to be used on those properties, and we need to plan for how to use those spaces. As far as hard gray infrastructure projects, we do have a number of actual hard projects here. Two that I will note in this meeting at least is critical facilities infrastructure projects. So one of them is for facilities that are deemed critical, obviously like community centers that are going to be used as shelters or fire stations, etc. Increasing the structural capacity. They require a level 4, category 4 structural load capacity. That'll be an interesting level of retrofits to those facilities, but that's included in that. And then a secondary power application was applied for. That is traditional generators and replacement or upfit to meet critical loads, but also solar PV plus battery is part of that application. And we're working through how to ensure that we can meet both the what's allowed through the federal hazard mitigation policy, and then what NCEM allows in their local administration of their state administration of those funds. So it's an interesting thing to navigate through. Moving on to yes, Mike.
Good morning, Walter. And good morning, Leslie. My question is specifically of the 5 infrastructure resiliency construction projects, the only one I don't think that you mentioned anything specifically is the drinking water system. You might want to defer that to Leslie, but could you just tell us what part of the drinking water system improvements are HMGP funded?
Sorry, got a cough drop. Yeah, Mike, I was going to hit on that in my part of the presentation.
Oh,
So
that's fine.
is that okay then if we
Yeah,
hold on?
that's fine. That's
Okay.
fine. Thank you.
Walter, you're on mute.
Thanks. Yeah, we'll let Leslie talk about that one. So private property acquisition is again another part of this. It is being managed through the state. It comes to the county and then finally comes to us. Largely, we are here to approve or disapprove. I think that the council's stated preference is to approve. It puts us in an awkward position because we're taking properties off of the tax rolls, but obviously it's advantageous. There's a difficult decision for a lot of folks to be making for this. These numbers are from a September update to council. We expect these numbers to increase since the deadline was October 31st to submit. But as you can see, this is the profile of applications at that time. So a good number of acquisitions. Again, the open space management plan will help us to figure out how to manage those. And then 13 elevations, 2 slope stabilization projects. We did work to raise awareness of the program, sending information letters, and then through our FAST team. But again, it's for affected property owners, it is a difficult decision. Some folks still have mortgages and insurance and et cetera that they're paying. So, and then again, this is a similar, very long timeline to get bought out. So, it's a lot to navigate.
Thanks, Walter. I'm going to try to go through these next few slides quickly so we can get to Leslie with a water resource update, and then get to any public comments that we may have and any additional questions that you, the board, may have. CDBGDR, this is like the icing on the cake for us. That's how we should think about this. This is some additional funding that we here in the city of Asheville are tremendously fortunate to have fallen our way. So these are federal, additional federal government dollars that allows us to do more than just build back what was there before Tropical Storm Helene. And it goes across multiple levels. Housing, economic revitalization, mitigation efforts are all included in what DR funding can cover. Just know that with these additional dollars, there is a process. Much like with the FEMA PA process and HMGP, there are processes that our team have been working the last several months to get in place to just make sure that we're following all federal guidelines while getting our ducks in a row to get these dollars out for these various infrastructure projects. These plans, our CDBG-DR funding can help with mitigation efforts, resiliency efforts, but because they're coming from housing and urban development, they require strict eligibility, like low to moderate income criteria is part of the process and part of the criteria that we must follow. So our team is working to look at all of our infrastructure projects, come up with a process that we'll work through to make certain projects eligible for this additional funding for certain projects. Next slide. You can kind of see this is the lengthy process to go that is incorporated into those CDBG-DR funding. We found out back earlier this year in January that we were granted the funds, and then there's been this long process that include community engagement, putting together plans, action plans, in ways that we're going to follow all necessary guidelines to disperse the funding for various projects. You can see right now in August, drafting the plan guidelines, and staff are currently meeting with boards as well as meeting with our internal partners to talk through what the next step looks like for them. Ultimately, late this fall, early winter, we anticipate projects beginning and implementing with the CDBG-DR efforts. Next slide. And ultimately, this graph just kind of illustrates what we're trying to do with all the funding. So we have PA, we have HMGP, we have CDBG-DR, and we have projects across the spectrum that qualify for all. So what we are ultimately trying to do is identify all the projects that we have. How do we maximize funding in each of these areas with those projects, and moving through with a very carefully coordinated effort to make sure that all of these projects and these different funding stream processes all align. And you can imagine, again, these are federal dollars, getting those projects to align when they're all separate is a challenge. So that is part of what we have been working on the last several months. An example of these projects coming together are French Broad River Parks recovery. We know we got to build those parks back to what they were before. We know we have some mitigation efforts and situations in those projects that could qualify for HMGP. And we know that we can use CDBG-DR funding to do something beyond what was there before with each of these projects. So that's just an example. Design it twice. Part of this process includes a baseline estimate. So as we go through the design process for these projects, where we're looking to utilize multiple funding streams, we're designing it to the baseline because we know that's what we're going to get from FEMA, and then improve mitigation-based design. That is a separate process that includes other funding methods to get this carefully coordinated effort across these different funding streams, all working in unison together. Next slide. These are some projects on the park side that are moving forward. These are some of the highly visible ones that you've probably heard a lot about, either if you follow all the council meetings and some of the recovery work that is happening. Muni Golf Course is one of those projects that we fast track because of an existing contract we have in place to get, and it's a profit model for the city. So getting that project up and going was important. Azalea Park and infrastructure recovery and the French Broad recovery parks. This is a process by which we're utilizing, we're looking at all of the infrastructure in those spaces, those geographic areas, and bundling them together to come up with something special, ultimately in the end. With the Azalea Park infrastructure project, that is a project that is including transportation, public works, parks and rec, various project infrastructure that needs to be addressed and working together in that area to capitalize on the money, the funding that we have coming in, making sure that we're maximizing those efforts and coordinating those projects together. So we're doing that with the Azalea Parks project as well as the French Broad River projects. And this diagram just illustrates all the parks and infrastructure that were damaged in each of those areas and how we're working together. Next slide. So let's do this. We're going to jump to Leslie. Leslie, we'll have you share your screen.
All right, can you all see that?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so thank you, Dee. I really like that slide where you demonstrated how the possible funding sources, can stack up on each other. And that's one of the things that is both a blessing and a struggle. So I think you did a good job of explaining that. I appreciate that. I might steal that slide and keep it in my back pocket to be able to explain it to others that ask. So we have been, since Bill Hart updated you all in September, that we have made some progress on a few things. We did secure the FEMA funding on the temporary pretreatment for both the North Fork and William DeBrule plants, and that expires the end of November. So that gets us through hurricane season. We were very happy to get that nailed down. And you probably know this, but I'll just repeat it. FEMA funds come into the state, and then the state is obligated to manage that. And then we put in our request to the state for reimbursement, what they consider disbursement for those contracts. We have also been able to get at least 2 contracts with Chenable regarding the Bee Tree Dam. One of them is a multi-phase design. So you'll be hearing about Bee Tree Dam for a while until we can actually firm up a final design, which probably won't be for another year. We have also been invited by the city to apply for the CDBG-DR. And so we have training on that this week, and we're looking forward to putting in an application to get some funding for our pretreatment and our transmission main. Number 3, debris removal has begun on the North Fork watershed. Yay! So that's exciting to see some of that going away and starting to, some rebirth. I guess, it's been a year, so nature's kind of doing some of it, and staff have been organizing the debris, and now we have a contractor in there to remove the debris from the streams and waterways. Last one, our pretreatment and transmission main, we removed from the public assistance projects, and we've combined them together with an HMGP application that's going forward. I think, like many departments, what we're trying to do is get our projects, contracted into design. And so that may mean that we're using this type of money first in hopes that FEMA will come and reimburse us for that in the future. We have struggled with developing cost reasonability analysis for projects because the topography of our area doesn't make it easy to compare a project in Eastern North Carolina with Western North Carolina. So that's been, we've contacted not only engineering firms, but other municipalities. They've been very helpful, but it's just been a long process. And I just wanted you to know these are several of the sources we're looking at to use. We've got North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality, Division of Water Infrastructure, State Revolving Fund, which is a continual process that they have year in and year out, but they have been they've been given money not only from the federal government, but from the state government for specific Hurricane Helene related repairs. So we're putting in an application with them, HMGP, CDBGDR, FEMA Public Assistance, EPA, WIFIA has, I'm sure you've heard that also months ago from David Melton, but they have a loan program. And so we're still continue to keep that kind of as option C. Again, trying to bridge until we can get funding reimbursed. And we're just, again, trying to get our design projects under contract and get that moving.
Any questions for Leslie while we still have her with us? While we're thinking about that, Christy, we'll transition back to our presentation for any additional questions. Go ahead, Mike.
Thanks, Leslie. Really good presentation. I guess this is a question for Dee or for the board or maybe for you, Leslie. I'm just going to throw it out there. In reviewing the material that has been submitted to council through the summer and going back since this board's been formulated, going back and reviewing the documents that were submitted to city council describing each of these projects that you referred to, I understand just the way things work that descriptions can change over time. You could have a 36-inch line appear as a 42-inch line. The last thing I saw was a 48-inch line for alternative main number 3. How can we, as a board, get a copy of the current or the final project description so that we'll know exactly what you folks are having to deal with as you proceed on these fundings and the design of these projects? Because frankly, it's not real clear. And I guess part of that has been, this is all a moving target and we're trying to move as quick as we can. But I think it'd be in the board's benefit, Dee and Tim, that we could get a final description of some of these water projects because they're by far the biggest dollar projects that the city's going to spend.
I don't think that'd be a problem. I'm sure we have that on some piece of paper already, or I should say electronically. Might take us a day or two to find the right one. But you're right, Mike, the titles tend to change over time. And I'm sort of a stickler. Like when we choose nomenclature, I want everyone to follow that for the rest of the project so I can look back in 20 years. I don't always win that argument, but the financial system sometimes constrains it, right? We have like 28 characters that we can use. But yeah, we can get you something if you want something from water specific.
Leslie, that'd be great. And I do recall those struggles myself back in the dark ages. Well, I shouldn't say that. You were there with me for a short period of time. And by the way, I just say to the rest of the board, I'm very pleased that Leslie is the deputy director and she does a wonderful job for the Water Resources Department.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that.
Thanks, Mike. Any other questions for Leslie or about the presentation before we move forward? So some upcoming things on the horizon for the board to wrap your head around. Next slide, Christy. We have engagement efforts. Now, part of these infrastructure projects, a lot of them are already moving forward. At this point, there's nothing that the PFI committee is considering policy-wise to go before council related to any of these projects. And like I said earlier, because these projects are slow and where we are in the design process of them, there isn't anything immediately on the horizon. Joe.
Hey, I just wanted to say I'm still seeing the water infrastructure slide on my screen.
Is everyone seeing that or the upcoming engagement, Alfred?
I see upcoming engagement.
Yeah.
Good.
Sure.
Joe,
Okay.
it may be a slight delay on your end.
Okay, I see it now. It just came up. Thank you.
No problem. So as it relates to these projects, again, a lot of them are moving forward. And so there's nothing policy related right now that is scheduled to go before the PFI committee for them to consider as these projects are currently in design phase. However, we have the really important piece of this, which is the public engagement piece that our teams are working on. And first up are those park projects, the Azalea Parking Infrastructure Project, along with the French Broad Recovery Projects. Those two projects are moving forward with the communication and engagement plan community efforts. So an announcement is going to be made on November 17th. We're planning to do an open house on December 10th at Asheville Middle School where we combine those projects. Our communications team is awesome. They do a lot of this public engagement for a number of different things that we have going on in the city. And one thing that we hear all the time is the community is sick and fatigued with community engagement. So we're trying to be intentional about how we go about it. It's a must-have for us in order to move forward with any project. So combining these two projects, although they have different consultants, the consultants are coming together to work together to get public engagement on these projects. Again, an in-person public engagement forum is scheduled for December 10th. Online survey will also be a part of this engagement process for these two projects. And then there'll be some other pop-up engagement opportunities in the neighborhoods, at community events, and at various open houses. There are focus groups that will be established for the French Broad project later for the Azalea Park project, but this is where you all come into place. We need you all connecting with your networks to make them aware of the public engagement opportunities. So there's going to be some outreach to this recovery board to get specific information from you, or that information from you on who in your network should we make sure that we're reaching out to. Give you a list of those focus groups so you can see who we're planning to reach out to and make sure that no one is falling through the cracks or no group is being missed in these public engagement efforts. There'll be more information on that so that you can start sharing out with your network, but we're sharing it here with you all first prior to any of this being announced on November 17th. Joe, do you have another question?
I do not. Sorry, I will remove my hand.
No problem. No problem. Any questions about the public engagement effort? Again, following this meeting, there'll be more information about how we get that information, pull that information back from you all on connecting with your particular networks. Charlie.
Yeah, so it looks like then the next opportunity for any organizations who would like to provide input on those park rebuilds will be on December 10th, and then maybe a follow-up public comment in the January meeting.
Yes, sir. That December 10th is going to be the first in-person opportunity. There will also be the online survey. And I can't remember exactly when that survey is going to go public, if it would be before that December 10th date or on that day afterwards, along with these public pop-up engagement opportunities to follow.
Okay, thank you.
Mike.
I assume the time at Asheville Middle School will be announced next week.
The who?
The time on December 10th at Asheville Middle School.
Yes, sir. That'll be a part of the public announcement.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. No problem. No problem. Any other questions? All right, we'll keep moving. Just again, key takeaways from this presentation. The main thing is for everyone to understand that all of our damaged infrastructure fall across different departments, but we kind of have them all categorized in these certain areas. And that's how we're kind of wrapping our arms around it as a team, a city team, to get the work of recovery done. The funding, the process that we're following is heavily, we're following our funding options. So the funding that is available to us is dictating how the process of our recovery operates. And then lastly, a lot of these projects are already moving forward. So I know we're getting tight on time. Christy, thanks for sharing. We'll finish up this presentation and continue with the public comment part of the meeting. Joe, before we do that.
Yeah, just real quickly, the one question I get asked a lot, especially with the timeline that's been communicated for the parks on the French Broad Riverfront, is how do we decide or prioritize those improvements or repairs to occur kind of temporarily or ahead of that 4 to 5 year timeline? I expect that that's going to come out of the process, but can you comment at all how that question can be answered for the folks that are asking right now?
Yeah, we're not there yet, but part of that, part of prioritizing the projects are going to be based on, one, the funding. So how does the funding come in? And we have 3 different funding methods. If you're talking about French Broad recovery projects specifically that we're trying to coordinate. Also keep in mind that we have 2 other major projects happening in that area with MSD and North Carolina Department of Transportation projects. So we're trying to coordinate on our end, the funding side of recovery, and with our partners with NCDOT and MSD to make sure that what we're doing in that space isn't being torn up and having to come back again and tear it up again for another project. So all of those efforts are being coordinated together. All of that to say that kind of helps us determine how we prioritize projects. We're not in a position to say right now what that looks like, but we have been public with saying that we know this is a long process. We know that the expectation is not that we're going to have that space or those spaces down for the entire 4 or 5 years. We expect this process to happen, but there will be a phased approach to getting spaces open as quickly as possible. And at this point, we don't know what that timeline is going to be, but that is the ultimate goal. Hope that kind of clarifies it a little bit, Joe.
Yes, thank you. I know that every time we have an opportunity to get that out to the public, it'll help to answer that common question. Thank you.
No problem. No problem. With the public comment portion of the meeting, we have 30 minutes allocated. I'm not sure if anyone has signed up, but if we have anyone signed up, each person will have 3 minutes to speak. And Logan, do we have anyone signed up to speak?
There was nobody signed up last time I checked with Logan.
Sounds good. All right, informal discussion, future agenda items. So a few things to keep in mind. Updated meeting materials, including this presentation, the updated presentation, minutes, all of that stuff can be found on the Infrastructure Recovery Board website. Mike will work to get answers to your question with final project description specifically for water. I will try to get something more locked in on how we prioritize parks projects, Joe, that makes it easier for the board to share out with your networks. We'll have some additional information for you all to share and engage with your networks on the December 10th public engagement for the two large park projects. And we'll keep our eye out for the PFI committee, which is scheduled to meet December 9th at 3:00 p.m. on anything that is coming from PFI that will impact or inform what this committee will continue to move forward with. I can't say it enough, but remember, part of our existence, we take charge from the Policy, Finance, and Infrastructure Council Committee, and they're still working on finalizing their work plan for the rest of the fiscal year. So as it relates to infrastructure specifically, the only thing they have on their work plan for their, I think their February meeting is an update on infrastructure. So there are no action items or things that they're taking action on as it relates to infrastructure. More policy, more finance than what we're doing right now. So we'll continue to watch for any updates, and any updates that are coming from the PFI committee, we'll update you if that requires some additional work or feedback from this board. Any questions or discussions about anything?
I actually have a question.
I saw Mike saying first. We'll start with Mike and then we'll go to you, Marty.
Sorry, Marty. Just a couple of things. One minor and one that we may not have time to discuss this meeting, but maybe at our one in January. The minor thing is, it struck me that it is important as a group, as many of us as we can, to go to these community meetings that you just outlined, Dee. We're going to be together at least 18 months as a group. And it strikes me that at minor expense, get some name badges that say Helene Recovery Infrastructure Recovery Board with our name on it or whatever, that we can actually wear at these community meetings so that the public can see that we are on the board and be able to, if not answer questions, at least gather those questions and get it back to somebody that can answer them. It seems to me like that's a minor expense, and you probably do it. Some of you have been on other standing boards for years. You probably have already experienced that, but that just came to mind. Second thing, and I'll try to be as brief as I can here. I was on the independent review committee that the city formed, almost 3 years ago, where we looked into the Christmas 22 water system outage and came up with a report for the city. One of the first things that we did, or at least very early on, that was very beneficial from everyone that attended, was taking actually a field trip, looking at some of these sites and some of these projects that we're going to be responsible for, at least in terms of policy recommendations. I just really think it would be a good thing if we at least think about whether or not we would want to do that. And not only water projects, but the Azalea, the Parks and Rec, the stormwater, all of that. It would help me, particularly at these community meetings when people ask specific questions, that I have more knowledge of what a project is other than just what I've read on a piece of paper, that I can actually see what the damage was, what's being proposed. And I just think that'd be worthwhile for us to consider as a group, asking the city to facilitate that. That's all I got.
Thanks, Mike. Tim? Or no, we had Marty and then Tim.
Yeah, just really quickly at 11:59, apropos moment for my question. What should we expect in terms of time management with these meetings? I know that we haven't had a whole lot of deliberation today, and I anticipate that and potentially some public comment in the future. I have a little bit of concern that an hour and a half may often not be enough time for these meetings, and I'm just sort of wondering what I should block out, because I know that a lot of times a lot of other boards and commissions and whatnot can run over.
Yeah, Marty, I think I have a conversation with Tim and Charlie. Right now, we'll keep the hour and a half that we have slated for the meetings. We'll try to make sure that the agendas are concise so that we are able to fit everything in. So just for future planning as it stands now, continue to plan on committing the hour and a half every other month for our meetings. And then anything else like Mike just suggested, field trips, if we have any of those other things, that would be the additional time commitment and any homework that may come out of the PFI committee. So as they continue to update their work plan, that again is going to inform what we as a board are working on. So that would be the homework piece of what you all do, which will require some additional time. Tim?
Yeah, nothing really substantial. Just wanted to thank everyone who presented, UD and Leslie and Walter. There's obviously a massive amount of work that's going on. It's very complex. And I understand as a board, we won't be able to have input on most of it, perhaps. It sounds like our role will be primarily sort of public engagement liaisons and then providing our input at these particular times and opportunities, rather than kind of going into the weeds with city staff. And I'm sure that will sort of unfold organically as we move along together. But if you had anything to say about that in terms of our specific role, I'd be welcome that input.
Yeah, I think you're on spot on, Tim, but keep in mind again, policies that are coming before council for them to consider as it relates to infrastructure. So as the PFI committee continues to meet, if there's anything policy related, they're going to want the board to kind of mull those things over. Right now, there isn't anything policy related that they're considering, but it doesn't mean that that won't come up over the next few months. So anything policy related certainly would be an opportunity for the board to engage in those things, and anything else that may come up on the PFI work plan as they continue to finalize it for the fiscal year.
Great. Yep. Thanks, Steve.
Yeah. Any other questions? So we're a couple minutes over. I like to try to start and end on time, so I apologize. Maybe Tim will be a better facilitator keeping us on time once he starts orchestrating the meetings. Our next meeting is scheduled for January 6th, 10:30 a.m. Right now to 12 o'clock noon. It will be in City Hall, first floor conference room. So in person with a virtual hybrid option. More information will come on that. And again, Christy and myself will touch base with Tim. Charlie will get a meeting scheduled to plan out the agenda for the next meeting. If there's nothing else, I have a motion to adjourn.
I move.
So moved.
Adjourn. I second.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
See
you.
in January.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dee. Thank you, Christy.